You're gonna sell the herd, aren't you?
We're gonna.
Horn and testicle and put them.
You need to move that chair back over there and let him get in closer here.
Yeah.
Move, no, move that chair back some
Yeah, okay.
and let him get a little closer. There you go.
You want this
Can I
chair?
put
Yeah,
my-
just move on
my-
over this
Yeah.
way.
My,
Yeah, your notes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, keep your notes, because I might want to look at them too.
yeah. Well, you won't, they're written in Cajun, you
Oh,
have to look.
What we're gonna do is we're going to do a R.O.P.E album, and it's gonna be an album consisting of funny stories, road stories, that only these guys know about, you know? We'll be talking about some entertainers that they worked with and so on and so forth. So I'm gonna turn it over to Jim Ed Brown.
Oh, God.
We need a good moderator. So
No, I'm not gonna, he can be the moderator. He can go in there and turn that tape on, but every once in a while, he needs to come out here and tell a story
I
too.
can answer, I can respond to questions a lot better than I can just.
Yeah, me
tell
too.
stories.
Yeah, that's, I am too. I always ask them, tell me a question.
Yeah.
Well, if I was to tell you a question, tell me about the Louisiana hayride days.
Couldn't we start on that? though?
Yeah, why not?
I must have got to the hayride just a little bit ahead of you. I came in 54,
Right.
Early 60, 54.
I was just gonna say, you came in early '54. We came in, we came there in like April of '54, March, latter part of March.
Well, we
April
were
of
there pretty
54.
close together then.
Yeah.
We came in there.
Yeah.
Were you there when Elvis came?
I was the one that went to Horace Logan and said, "Hey, you need to hire this young man," and then he killed a hayride. You know?
Well, here's how we would react, guys, all the time. I'd write that the first because we had never dreamed of anything like that. Because Mr. Horace Logan had just said not long before that there would be no rock and roll on the Louisiana
That's
hayride.
right.
He told Rufus that and myself. So here come Elvis, and Elvis knew what he was going to do from the start, and he did it from the start till the end, I guess. Which
I'm
is
not-
the gyration, you know.
I'm not sure that Elvis knew everything that he was going to do.
Well, he did do some shaking from the start.
Well-
Because we'd look at him from backstage and we'd say, all of us older hillbillies or swamp billies like myself, we'd point and just walk off. But we'd watch him from backstage. That'll never last. That's a fad. The legend is bigger than it ever was.
We didn't think it would last. We didn't think radio would play him. You know,
Yeah. But y'all became close
country
friends.
radio.
Y'all became close friends to Elvis.
Yeah, we did. We were pretty close there
Although
for a
I
couple of
was
years.
too, shared the dressing room and did 2 tours for him. And darn you lost the guitar from him banging on it, but we'll get to that later.
Well, just keep talking. You're doing good.
Well, we've done, the last tour we did for him, which Bob Neal, his manager, you remember that he'd hire us to do those tours with him.
Okay.
And so we got to Amarillo, I think it was, and it was a matinee. And Elvis had gotten accustomed to how much people liked him and how much he shook them up.
Yeah.
Later had the hit called All Shook Up. Well, he was out there, and I had been on before, and so I did my thing and walked back and left my guitar sitting there in the case wide open. So when Elvis finally came out, and there were some other acts on the show, but I was one of the openers. Okay, so Elvis comes out, he'd broken all the strings on that old Martin guitar.
Marvin his.
That I call it the Hank Snow style with the leather
Yeah.
case around it. You guys remember?
Yeah.
that. Broken all the strings on his, and it came out, I guess, Bill and
Scotty and Bill.
Scott and Bill were doing something while he ran out there looking for a guitar. There's mine wide open, the same type without a leather case. He grabbed it, and when it came back, not only all the strings were broken, but it was all scratched up. See, that leather case kept his brand new D28 Martin, and I was sick. Awfully sick. So
I bet you were.
I came to the Opry with that guitar, and Jackie Phelps, dear friend, was visiting backstage. Somehow or another, the back strap wasn't right, and he thumped it, and boom, it fell on the floor and busted. I had it fixed and sold it. Can you imagine? Because I could never put the
Can't
word.
imagine seeing Jim C. NEWMAN crying.
I know. Yeah.
I was sick. That's what I said. I didn't cry. But that's a story of that's a highlight of my Louisiana hayride days. Because
With
whenever
Elvis.
we follow Elvis, as you know,
Yeah.
lots of time somebody had to follow him because the show lasted X amount of time.
Well, whenever he was on the hayride, there at the end, Horace, when he first joined the hayride, he was just kind of getting started. He had been in the business, I guess, about a year, and he had not started all of this stuff, with his shaking and everything else. He was doing a little of it. He was doing a little of it, but he wasn't doing a lot.
Yeah,
He wasn't doing the movements that most people remember Elvis for. But if Elvis was on the hayride, they had a full house.
Oh yeah.
If he wasn't there, then nobody showed up. But that was after we left. See, he stayed on longer than we did.
Oh really?
You left and came to the Opry.
No,
We left.
Well, Elvis had left whenever before I left
you
the
left?
hayride.
Well, he come back then, some, because I know he wasn't playing the hayride all that much, but every once in a while he was doing it. Even when we left in late in '55, and went to the Ozark Jubilee. You left.
Yeah, I left in 56.
Right, '56, and went to the Opry.
The night that he left, and I won't take but a minute to intrude you. With
Okay. Well, maybe I know that. I don't know about you, but I know he was still there when we left.
So in '56, just before I headed for here, it was in the spring, I guess. He did the hayride for the last time, and Tillman Franks, our good friend Tillman Franks, who later became very well known as a manager for Johnny Horton. He told me, he said, and Elvis, as y'all would not talk.
He didn't talk much.
He'd do a song, and he would not make a long thing about a song. He'd just do another one, or he'd do this. He had a routine like after the song, where give time for the girls to just go wild. He'd do this, I got a woman way over town, and that was the length of his talking. Right there, he'd start singing the song, and Tillman said, "Elvis has gone to Hollywood. He's gonna be a movie star." I said, "Boo!" I said, "He can't talk." Even there was a big talker. Now I'm gonna shut up about Elvis. You tell me.
Well, tell me about Jim Reeves.
Well, Jim, what?
Were you was Jim at the hayride when you came?
Well, I came there in '54, and I don't think. Do you remember in '54? I don't think he was. No, he's already started his career. In fact, he was coming over here right after that.
Right.
But while he was on the hayride, he came over and did some gigs with us with my band down in South Louisiana.
He did.
Yeah, he did at least one. I remember in Lake Charles.
Did he have Leo Jackson with him then?
No, I don't think he had anybody with him at that particular. But we're talking about over 50 years ago.
Well, you're supposed to remember that, Jimmy.
I know. Well, I remember Jim Reeves was there, but I don't remember who else was there. Horton came over too and did that gig at the Moulin Rouge in Lake Charles, and we had a TV show.
Speaking of Johnny Horton, he used to come by the house all the time, up there in Pine Bluff, and he'd stop in or he'd be going through, and he loved to fish, and he loved to kill crows.
He is a crow man.
Yeah. Oh, he had a collar thing in the back of his car, and a gun always. And if he was driving down the road, and he'd drive at 90 miles an hour most of the time anyway.
He had a heavy foot.
Oh, he had an awful heavy. It wasn't heavy. It just was. The foot feed was automatically on the floor.
Yeah. Well, us Cajuns call that a heavy foot.
Well, it's a heavy foot. If he was going down the road and he saw 3 or 4 crows, he'd just stop and get out by a tree, call them up, kill them. Then he'd get back in his car and drive 100 miles an hour trying to catch whoever he was following. Or if he saw...
Sound like me.
But Johnny Horton he was a great, that was a great loss. Well,
he was an outdoorsman too,
Yeah, he was.
That's why they call him at the hayride days a singing fisherman.
Did they?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. Hayride days.
Okay. Well, the hayride was quite a place, wasn't it?
But you tell us a little bit about Elvis, because talk about a guy who knew about Elvis, you and your sisters.
We may have said enough about Elvis.
One time I know your dad had to loan him a car because you were driving in that little car with he and Scott and Bill.
My daddy bought a brand new Pontiac, and we were poor folks, and we'd never had any new cars hardly. But anyway, he bought a brand new Pontiac as a family car. And he had it there at the house, and Elvis and they were headed to Texas to do it a couple of dates, 3 days, I guess it was.
Probably do shows for Tom Perriman. Remember they do a bunch of them.
But anyway, they had a wreck up in Lone Oak, Arkansas. This before the interstates and all came along. Had a wreck in Lone Oak, Arkansas. What had happened is they had a truck and trailer had pulled out in front, and they hit that trailer, and the base was up on top of the car, and it just went sliding down the highway for about 100 yards. But the car stopped, and they did too. But anyway, it just tore the car all to pieces. Well, anyway, they called Bonnie. Elvis knew Bonnie. They had kind of dated or something,
She was a knockout too in those days. I can understand why.
And anyway, asked if he could borrow one of our cars because they didn't have any money either.
Yeah.
So Bonnie talked Daddy into letting him borrow that brand new Pontiac. She took it. She got Daddy up, and the two of them, they took off, and they took one car to come back in and one car for him to take. And they came back home. Elvis took the car, and about 2 weeks later, they showed back up. They were only going to keep it 3 days.
Yeah.
They were coming back home. 2 weeks later, they left the car in front of the house. They didn't
Probably late at night.
Oh, they didn't even wake us up. They didn't do nothing. They just kept going.
Purposely didn't bother.
Purposely. The next morning we got in the car, and he had put like almost 10,000 miles on the car. Running. I mean, just every day doing all these dates and everything else. Anyway, and the front tires were just worn completely. They had gotten out of balance.
Yeah.
And my daddy looked at Bonnie, and he said, "Don't you ever ask me to let some of these hillbilly picker friends of yours have a car." So, but anyway, there's a lot of stories.
Clarify for the folks, Bonnie was
Yeah, my
Jimmy's
sister.
not youngest sister, next to him,
Next to
who later became the Browns, Maxine and Bunny. Now, I don't mean to dump a free melon, but I did, because we're supposed to go around like this here, not, we're
Well,
it
jumping
doesn't
matter.
I'm enjoying this.
Me too.
well, they're gonna have their chance. I promise you, because with him and the two of them, they playing them lap organs. They're gonna get plenty to talk
Oh,
about.
there's some wonderful stories.
Well, I think maybe we ought to find. How did you start playing the steel guitar?
Eddie Arnold used to have a syndicated radio show,
Yeah.
and every afternoon when I'd come home from school, my mother would have that program on, and I heard Little Roy Wiggins playing. I didn't know it was a steel guitar. I thought it was a pretty. In fact, we were talking about it on the way out here.
Ting-a-ling.
I thought that was the prettiest sound I'd ever heard.
That's how I learned to whistle.
Was it?
Listening to him play.
But they had a local radio program there. A guy named David Jackson and the Arkansas Cotton Choppers.
Yeah.
If you remember him or not. They had every Thursday night they had a radio program, and Mother and Daddy always listened to it. And so one night, Daddy said, "Listen, son, you want to go up to the radio station and just watch them play?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd love to do that."
How old were you then?
I was about 14.
Okay.
And we went up, and this guy, they were the little studio. It looked like about a 15 by 15, And they was all gathered around the mic. And there was a little guy sitting over in the corner, had a little lap steel. But of course, I wasn't paying attention to him because I didn't know what it was. And David was talking, and they decided to do a song, and the steel kicked it off. And when that steel kicked off, I looked. That's what I've been hearing on the radio right there,
Right there.
And this little guy here, it was shaped like a fiddle, and but it was about that thick. But it had holes in the top of it like a fiddle would
I
have.
remember those
And it was real pretty silverish gray color, and had Hawaiian girls on it, And we got
Foolish girl.
yeah
Dancing girl.
And we watched them, and got ready to leave. And I told Daddy he was going to buy me an electric guitar because I wanted to play electric guitar. And but when we left the studio, I said, "Daddy, that's what I want right there." He said, "Oh, son," he didn't know what it was. He said, "You just want one of them things, I said, "Oh, yes, I do. That's what I want." But we went on for like 3 or 4 months, and I couldn't get it out of my mind. I couldn't stand it. And I just kept after Daddy, so we finally went to Montgomery Ward's and ordered me a little Sherwood Deluxe and an amplifier. And I think it was $85 for the guitar and amplifier. And I took that thing home. I had taken my, had a little flat top Gene Autry guitar, you know, that played rhythm on, you know. And I'd just put me a pencil under the strings, you know, by the end of the nut. After I'd seen this guy, you know, and I had a glass doorknob. White, you remember the white glass that mother never put in the chicken nest, you know, to make the hens lay.
Yeah, fool the hen.
Yeah. So, and I had that, and I could slide that doorknob up and down the thing there. But he finally got that guitar for me, and I carried it home, and I didn't have a stand or anything. I laid it on the kitchen table, and tuned it up to E, and I had learned to play steel guitar rag on my little Gene Autry guitar, and I run them nuts. Crazy playing. I sat there 24 hours a day almost playing, fooling with that thing, you know.
You thought it sounded like a million.
Oh, I sure did. Then I started copying, trying to copy Little Roy Williams, because I thought it was the prettiest sound in the world. And we had just moved back from Mississippi. My daddy worked for a guy on the airport in Helena, and during World War II, and so they moved us to Horn Lake, Mississippi. And during the war, and as soon as the war was over, we moved back to Helena, Arkansas. And lost my train of thought. But anyway, I met Conway in school in the 7th grade. And he went up one night on this same program I was talking about, and they had him as a guest. And we were listening to it, and when he started singing, and I jumped up out of the chair, I told Mother, I know that guy, he's in my class at school, you know. I didn't even know him or know he sang or anything, but anyway, the next day at school, I went up and told him, you know, I played a little bit, you know, and we got together and started playing, and we would play at school when, if it was raining outside, the kids couldn't go out and play, we'd go in the auditorium and play. And I finally took a coat hanger and made me a rack and put a harmonica in it, you know, and I got where I could do a kickoff on a song, you know. But the kids eat it up, you know.
That's good.
And that's how I met Conway. But anyway,
Is he the first professional that you played with?
yeah, he was.
Well, you played with Eddie Bond in Memphis and other guys.
Well, this was after.
You're talking about the road, I guess.
Yeah.
On the road he was the Slim Rhodes was my first group. We used
The
to
Rhodes family?
Yeah, Slim, Speck and Dusty and all of them.
Yeah.
And we had a TV show. Yeah, I used to come over to Little Rock and build a TV show and stuff.
WMPS TV.
Yeah. And Conway had sang a song. We had a little radio program on that same station, called ourselves the Phillips County Ramblers. And I've got a tape right now that some guy made on a wire recorder of our show, and then Conway was singing Cry Baby Heart. I don't know if you remember that old tape, Cry Baby Heart. Mm-hmm. Anyway, and then somebody transferred it to a little old plastic disc. And when Conway built his museum and stuff up there at Twitty City, he wanted to put that in there, so he took the little plastic disc and had it cleaned up real good and made a tape of it so he could have a continuous play. And he was playing that song, and I was playing that little lap steel, trying to play like Little Roy Wiggins. And that's the only actual thing I've got that recorded it, playing that little guitar and trying to play like Little Roy, getting back to who had inspired me to play.
A lot of people wanted to play like Little
Yeah.
Roy Wiggins in those days.
I was telling Don on the way out here, I said, Little Roy told me one time, he said, John, he said, you know, all those guys can ting-a-ling, but he said, they ain't got Little Roy's heart in it. And I thought that just stuck in my mind. And I said, there's something to be said about that. And they could, but it seemed like when he did it, it was different. Even though they played the same notes and everything, it was a little different when he did it, you know.
And speaking of that difference, you know, Eddie used him, Eddie Arnold.
Yeah,
used
yeah.
him all those years.
Oh, yeah.
And all of a sudden he decided Little Roy wanted a raise.
I've heard that story, yeah.
And Eddie refused to give him that raise.
Yeah.
Well, Eddie went into the studio and recorded a couple of more songs, and they didn't sell, so Little Roy got his raise. And he went back with Eddie. Way to go.
I know, talking about steel guitar players, the Cajuns, very popular. That style you were talking about, Little Raw Wiggins.
Yeah.
They want to play like Dunn, but they say, the Cajuns say, that sound what Dunn Helm plays, that Dunn with some banjo, he got some banjo string on that guitar. I said, you can't buy no banjo string over here. Nobody play no 5-string over here. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. The string manufacturers didn't make a string that small to tune that first string.
Yeah.
And I used a tenor guitar.
We thought it was banjo string.
Yeah, well, it's the same gauge,
Yeah.
but tenor guitar, they have a ball end.
Oh, yeah.
And if the tenor banjos have loop ends. And I use it's a 10 or 11,000.
What did you tune it to? What did you note?
A G sharp.
So you just tuned it way on up there right. You didn't have to pull it up.
There was no pedals.
He was scared to death he's going to break it every
Well, yeah.
time he tuned it up.
Yeah.
That Cajun said, that guy what played like with Frank Williams, I said, gosh, he's
Frank Williams.
he's more good than good, but he said, they don't sell no 5-string over here. I can't buy no string like that.
He was right.
Well, anyway, you started with Conway. When?
Well, I went to work with him at
Had he already been through his rock and roll?
He'd been through the
years?
rock and roll thing, and I think in '64 he went to Owen Bradley and told him he wanted to do country. And so they did. They cut several sides, and they used Pete Drake, and I forgot. He had some pretty good records, And
Yeah.
Excuse me, that's when you left MGM and came with Owen and made the
I believe it was.
transition.
Yeah.
With MGM, he was still doing the other stuff.
Right, yeah.
Rockabilly. And then he came with Owen. I was with Decca then. So
Yeah.
I suspect a little bit about all that.
But he called. I guess he'd been doing country. Well, of course, I went to work with him in '68, and '64 he'd gone country, and he had bought during his rock days. He had bought a little restaurant down on Moon Lake, Mississippi, there, and a little club and restaurant, and he had put his mother and dad. They were running it, to give them something to do, And every time he would come through there, going somewhere to play, well, he would stop and play for him on us like a Saturday night. So one Saturday night he called and said, John, I hadn't seen him in a pretty good while since he was in the rock field because we went different directions, But he called and said, why don't you come down and sit in with us? A guy named Lou Houston was playing still. I don't know if you knew him or not. So I went down. I said, yeah, I come in and my wife went down. I said, well, let's just get out of the house, and go down. So I sat in with him, and Lou was there, and we got through playing. Went home, and that was on a Saturday night. And a Thursday night, Conway called, said, John, could you go out with us this weekend? Says Lou's sick. He said, we're going to be gone 3 days. And he had his own plane back then. And he said, and he was living in Oklahoma City. He said, we'll stop and pick you up at the airport there in Memphis, and we'll go do our dates, and we'll drop you back off. I said, okay, yeah, that'd be fine. I'd enjoy that. So we went out. Well, the next week, the following Thursday, he called again, about 2 o'clock in the morning, and we was all in bed asleep, and told me, said, well, Lou's having some family problems, and said he's going to have to quit, so wonder if you'd be interested in, going to work. And I told my wife, I said, well, of course I was on the road with the Rhodes group, but it wasn't like nationwide. We worked like about a 4-5 state area,
Just around Memphis.
Yeah. And I told my wife, I said, well, Conway wants me to go to work with him. And I said, I don't know about, if I want to do that or not. And we decided anyway. I said, well, I can try it. If I don't like it, I can always quit.
Wow.
So I told him, I said, yeah, we'll go. So 20 years later, I was still there. But I enjoyed it. It was the way he worked. Mostly Friday, Saturdays, and Sundays. So it wasn't like being gone months at a time, and it just kind of became a way of life for us. And finally, I got to playing. Well, after I cut his Next in Line was his first number one. Actually, Image of Me should have been his first number one record, but it only went to 2 in the charts. But I happened to just actually be on the next one. It was the next in line, and it was his first #1 country record, which I was kind of proud to say that I was on, you know. But after that, I got to coming back and forth to Memphis, to Nashville doing sessions when we were off of the road, and I told my wife, I said, it's driving, you know, by the time I'd get back home, it's time to go back out on the road with Conway. So I said, we can just move to Nashville, and so I can work out of there with Conway, because he gave me a credit card to just fly, you know, commercially back to Oklahoma City every week if they were going west, and if they were going east, well, he'd pick me up. So I said, I can fly out of Nashville just as easy as Memphis, so we moved over here. And about a year later, well, Conway moved his office over here, so I thought, boy, this is great, you know, just right here together. But it was, I guess, a great 20 years, because he really let me, he got me known in this music field, in the sessions and stuff. I didn't have to come over here and struggle, you know, say, okay, here I am, you know. So by just being on his records, I started getting calls, you know, and so I was able to do studio work and then work with him because of our weekend. He's work Friday, Saturday. Sometimes we'd go out for a 10-day trip, once, twice a year out. Had to go to L.A. or someplace like that. And but because you couldn't come home, you know, and turn around and go right back. But it really, I give him credit for really getting me into the business in a professional, national way, you know.
Well, when I met you, you were with Eddie Bond, and
Yeah.
remember we played at the fair. And
Exactly, yeah, I remember that just like it was yesterday, yeah.
Did too, really.
Yeah, yeah,
And you-
that little tent thing out there, you know, hot, about 110 degrees.
As usual, it was either too hot or too cold. I sure
But
been.
that was Eddie Bond, boy, I tell you, well, see, I worked with Slim first
Uh-huh.
in 1953, in fact, in March the 12th, 1953, I'll never forget the first day. But I worked with him for on and off for about 19 years. In the meantime, I'd learned about Eddie Bond and some of the guys around town, and I got tired of playing what I was playing, you know, with Slim, you know, and Eddie was playing this dance music.
Clubs where you can
and,
diversify more.
Yeah, so
With the Fargo brothers.
Yeah, I went to work with him, and and I'd work for about a year, and I'd get tired, you know. I thought, boy, I'm tired of this. I'd call him, Slim, you need a steel player? Yeah, come on, John. But neither one of them would never hire anybody, because there was really there were several steel players around Memphis, but they all had day jobs, and they weren't working, you know, just weekend thing. And I was trying to do it full time, which I did. Good Lord bless me with that. But off and on, I would work with them, you know, for 20 years. But Eddie Bond would. He talking about some stunts he would pull. We was playing a club over in West Memphis, you know.
I remember that place, man.
Yeah, Danny's Club, and then also the Cotton Club was a big club over there. But we played Danny's Club.
I think I worked with you there too.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, and but Eddie was going to throw a big party for us one day. You know, just the band and everybody. They invited us over to his house, you know, before we went to play that night. And we all went over and carried our instruments and stuff, and so we could go leave from there to go right to the club. Oh, we had steaks and a big case of booze and stuff. I mean, a rig layout, you know. Oh, we eaten and drank and had a good time, and then went on to play that night. Well, when we got through playing, time to come to pay, the party come out of our money.
Slight deduction.
Yeah, he took the whole thing out of the money before he paid up. I thought, man.
Well,
But that was one of his stunts, you know, he would do.
well, Eddie was a DJ in Memphis.
Oh, yeah, he was a hot
Number one
DJ over
country
there.
DJ,
Yeah.
And so whenever he'd holler for us to do a gig, or like with me, in my case,
Yeah.
I'd go do it, and that's where we met.
Yeah, he would book a lot of artists over there and use our band to back
Close
him up,
friends
you
of
know.
Webb Pierce.
Yeah.
And the Fargo brothers, the wrestlers.
Is that
Yeah.
Is that Art Martin Fargo? Who's that?
There's Art Martin.
Oh, Art Martin.
No, there were. I'm not about to make gist or fun of the Fargo brothers because they were wrestlers.
I know they were.
Full-grown folks, and they were always the one that I can't remember his name was always nice to me.
Oh, they came all the way to Pine Bluff.
Jackie Fargo, wasn't it?
Yeah,
It was always nice.
yeah. Him and Eddie became good buddies, and he would show Eddie some Holtz, and stuff.
Oh, he did.
And Eddie would come out to the club, and he'd come in, John, I'll show you this new hold I got, Well, I'd say, okay, and he'd try to get that hold on me, and I'd grab him and snatch him around and get him down on the floor, Said, wait a minute. Now, wait a minute, you didn't give me a chance to get it, to show you. Oh, it always backfired on him.
But the way y'all did those clubs is so typical of Louisiana, 'cause,
Yeah.
let the hair go with the hide.
That's
you don't
right,
worry
yeah.
about nothing.
That's right.
Don't worry about the mule, just load the wagon
That's
or
right.
unload the wagon. Whatever.
Isn't it strange that all of so many things happen and so many, memories are of the days before you become a professional?
Right, that's right.
They're good memories.
Yeah.
Yes, they are. And
a lot
because
of-
once you become a professional, then it's work.
That's right.
You've decided that you're going to try to make your
that's right.
living this way, and it changes things a lot.
Sure
Yeah,
does.
but knowing Grandpa John and all those guys, that kept it going. Don probably got something to say too that we're holding him back.
Well, he's
You're
been
the
sitting
boss.
over there awfully quiet this
Yeah, I know,
whole
that's why I'm worried about it.
I want to hear more about that high fifth string.
I've known John Hughey for 35 years, and I learned more about him today than I've ever known. I've enjoyed it.
Oh, well, I
You knew
appreciate
about
it.
even those Memphis days, the way he played those
Yeah,
clubs. I even knew about it.
Yeah.
I had those kind of days in Montgomery, Alabama.
Yeah, I bet.
I,
Is that where you were raised?
South of Montgomery, about 80 miles. Down near a little town called Enterprise.
Okay.
Oh,
Know
yeah.
where it is.
Rockton, Alabama.
I know where it is.
We're both born and raised there, and Sammy Pruitt and I and three other guys had a little old band, and we were playing a lot in South Alabama around Bruton and Elba and Enterprise and some of those little towns, and playing in clubs. And one of the boys had met Hank Williams. He sang up at WSFA in Montgomery, just him and his guitar. So he went up there on some days off, and when he came, he ran into Hank, and Hank said, I'm fixing to put a band together. He said, well, why don't you talk to us? We already got one. He said, well, get them up here and we'll talk.
Pretty good promotion.
And he came back and said, would y'all like to go to work for Hank Williams? I'd heard of Hank, but I'd never met him. I said, well, it can't be no worse than this. So we went up there and we met Hank at this music store in Montgomery that everybody was familiar with. And
Hold that thought. We gotta change tape.
Oh, we don't need.
Yeah, brother, he said, you think you can? That was his wife. Lion didn't remember what he character was.
Rolling.
Rolling?
Tell me about that fifth string, or with the banjo string on that steel guitar.
The standard tuning that most everybody used back, a lot of guys used back then, the steel guitar rag tuning was an E string on top. And originally it was an E and a B, and John knows all those technical things. But I had added a higher note on and a regular steel guitar string just wouldn't go up there, but a tenor banjo or a tenor guitar string was a
There
much
was a lot
smaller
of
gauge.
banjo involved, it was a tenor banjo.
Yeah.
Was this a seventh string or a sixth string or what?
Along then they were coming out with 7-string steels, and then
Oh, okay.
8 and then 10.
Okay.
And so I was playing
You're gonna have to
down
retell
in
it.
Alabama with
What did you do?
10 minutes.
Don, we got to retell it.
Okay.
But he
Well, why-
started
why-
talking about it at the beginning with Hank too, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got so many.
Well, he's got to get in. He's got to get in. See, he hadn't said anything yet.
Yeah, I know.
Tell us when you're ready.
We
Well,
are
in the book, he
Are
talks
you
about
rolling?
it, this idol he had. He loved this guy, the way, in the book,
Oh.
the way this guy played. And
Oh.
it's so interesting. That's how
Okay.
the guy used that style too, you see. That's how that came.
Yeah, that was a part of my life that I hadn't told about yet. John told how he got started and what influenced him. The Bob Wills records. Leon McCullough.
Leon McCullough.
I read that in the
was
book.
my idol, and along with Little
Oh,
Roy
yeah.
and then Jerry Bird.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
I had a lot of idols back
Yeah,
then.
yeah.
But Leon McCullough used that tuning, and I had to have that, what he had.
Whatever he had, huh?
And
And that's where is that where that little E string or G string or whatever it was?
G sharp. Yeah, that's where it came into being, and I just stuck with that all these years, and I used it on the Hank Williams records, and that's, I guess, one of the things that caught on. for
Gave
me.
him the sound. Identity,
Yeah.
that's what the.
That's it. Yeah, exactly.
Roy Wiggin was the identity for that. Yeah.
Back years ago, everybody had an identity, just about.
Like an E.T.
Mhm.
But anyhow, go ahead with your stuff.
I forgot where I was.
I think you were telling about the band going to work with
Yeah,
Hank.
Yeah.
and he said, "Y'all want to go to work with Hank Williams?" And I said, "Well, it can't be any worse than this." So we went up there and met him at this music store, and we were standing around there waiting, and this guy walked in and said, "Are y'all a band?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I'm Hank Williams.
He was
Follow me."
young. He was young.
Follow me.
Yeah. How did I say?
He was young, wasn't
Yeah.
he? Y'all were all young, of course.
All of us was a lot younger than this. And so he said, "Follow me." And we walked outside and walked into a hawk shop around there. And he said, "Jake, have you got any more of them blackjacks?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "Give me 5 of them."
Oh, blackjack,
And
okay.
he passed them out and said, "Boys, if y'all gonna play with me, you're gonna need these."
Life and Gun Club was on the
We
way.
did. The latter part of World War II in South Alabama and a honky tonk on Saturday night ain't the safest place to be.
Or Louisiana, I know what
So
you
that's how I got started with Hank. He hired the whole band at one time.
How long did you work with Hank? The whole time?
I worked with him from the time I started until he died was 10 years. I spent a year and a half in the Army during that time, but the rest of that time was with Hank Williams.
Did you do most of his sessions as well?
When he first came to the Grand Ole Opry, we came here, he came as a regular in August of 1949. And we played the Grand Ole Opry and took off to play our first date, Springfield, Ohio. And the next day, Hank had off, and we went into Cincinnati, and he did a session up there that was already scheduled, and he did My Bucket's Got a Hole in It, and he did
Jerry
I'm
was
So
on
Lonesome
that.
I Could Cry, and he used a staff band, Jerry Bird, Louis Ennis,
Oh,
Tommy
yeah.
Jackson,
And those brothers, what were they called on the guitar?
Zeke Turner,
Zeke?
Yeah.
Zeke and Zeb.
Ernie Newton, yeah, Zeke and Zeb.
Mm.
And from then on, I recorded everything that he recorded after that. Hank had 11 #1 hits, and I played on 10 of them.
Pretty good average.
And my first record with Hank was Long Gone Lonesome Blues, Why Don't You Love Me?
Yeah.
Let's see, we had one called Why Should We Try
Oh,
Anymore?
yeah, I used to sing that in the club.
Yeah.
They'll Never Take Her Love From Me. He had a string of pretty good numbers.
I always loved it. Never Take Her Love From Me. I thought, in fact, I put it on one of my CDs.
Yeah, that was a good
Instrumental.
song. That was a Leon Payne song.
Did you do the Loop the Drifter things too?
Yeah. Yeah, Luke was a way to get Hank out of a problem that he had. Everything that he would come out with would go right straight to the jukeboxes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But people could not dance to I Just Told Mama Goodbye and some of those
Yeah.
philosophical type songs. And so they said, we need to do something that he can still do them songs. He likes to do them. And so Fred Rose said, well, we'll give him another name. We'll give him a pseudonym. I thought, you right here in front of everybody. I didn't know what a pseudonym was.
What name?
A pseudonym. But anyway, he said, let's change his name to Luke the Drifter. And so all of those sad songs like that
Yeah.
were done under that name, and they would not get mixed up and get on jukeboxes as Hank Williams. Of course, he would do some of those songs from time to time on stage.
Yeah.
Here's one my stepbrother did. And But everybody knew who it was. He wasn't trying to keep it a secret.
No.
He just trying to have two outlets instead of one.
Yeah.
He was very smart in doing that.
Yeah, it gave him a chance to do some of the things that he liked most about the music business was that type songs. He wanted to be a writer much more than he wanted to be a singer.
And that's something.
Really? Well, he wrote some great songs.
He did pretty good with both.
Yeah, he sure did. I tell you another thing that none of us know but me and one or two. I recorded with Ernest Tubb before I ever recorded with Hank. When we came here with Hank, they had us touring with Ernest Tubb, and he didn't have a steel player, and he asked me if I'd play behind him, and I was playing all those songs. And then, since Hank recorded the day after we got here, he wouldn't record for another 4 or 5 months. But Ernest Tubb would, and he recorded and asked me if I'd play on him. And the first song that I ever played on was a song called "Letters Have No Arms."
Yeah, remember
Hear
that?
Sing it, I know
That was my first record ever
a
made.
great record too.
And he did,
Kisses on paper are so sweet.
yeah. So that was
Sweet
my.
things you write in your letters.
And then I recorded, because I had played with Hank, I guess, I played with a lot of other people. Jimmy C. Newman.
1954 with it.
Yeah. And,
Might have been the latter part of 53 where we cut Cry Cry Darling. I mean, like December.
Yeah.
Released in March.
But it opened a lot of doors for me, and Fred Rose helped me a lot. And so I got into the studio much more back then than I do now. But I recorded. I figured out one time that out of all of the Hall of Fame members of the Country Music Hall of Fame, I have played on stage or on record or on the shows with 44 of the members of the Hall of Fame.
Of the Hall of Fame.
That's a bunch. There's a few more if they ever get in there. You can
Yeah,
say
yeah.
you can increase that number with.
But I don't do too many records anymore. Once in a while I do one. If everybody else is out of town, I do one. I recorded a session with Jody Bush not long ago, and Billy Bob Thornton,
Yeah.
some of those people. But I recorded with Ray Price up until I've got a new heartache about an old sweetheart. That was my last song with him. I recorded Release Me and I'll Be There and Don't Let the Stars Get in Your Eyes.
Yeah. He was good friends with Hank, and there was sort of a connection there, I guess, 'cause you'd been good friends with Hank.
Yeah,
Ray had-
I've known Hank since 1943.
Yeah.
Don,
But Ray too was good friends with Hank.
Hank brought Ray up to Nashville.
That's it.
Yes, sir.
who, the Drifting Cowboys? When did that come along?
Hank sang solo on the radio as Hank Williams, the Drifting Cowboy.
Oh, really?
So
Okay,
once in
so
a
then
while,
that's-
if he needed a band, there was a band there in Montgomery that he would use, and he would call them the Drifting Cowboys. Hank Williams and the Drifting Cowboys, because they was on the air every day, and that's the way they'd plug in schoolhouse dates and stuff like that.
The original, who were the original Drifting Cowboys that you were with?
When I started, the day that I started was Sammy Pruitt, the guitar player,
Right.
and myself, and three guys that you probably would never have heard of. Miles Thomas was one, Tom Davis was one, Curly Corbin was the other one.
And then when did Jerry Rivers and some of the others come?
When Hank left the Louisiana Hayride and came to the Grand Ole Opry,
Jerry was from here.
Jerry was born and raised in Nashville, so was Hillis. And when Hank went to Shreveport, I was playing down in Alabama with a good band down there, and he said, "You want to go to Shreveport?" And I said, "What does it pay?" And he told me. And I said, "Hank, I'm making a lot more than that." And he said, "Well, I'll let you off this time, but if I ever go to that Grand Ole Opry, you're going with me." I said, "Okay." So when he went to the Opry, he did 2 guest appearances up there, and then he called me, and I was in Richmond, Virginia, visiting with Hazel's sister, and she said, she called and said, Hank called, wants Don to call him in Shreveport, and I did. He said, you promised me if I ever went to the opera, you'd go with me. I said, yeah. He said, well, have your butt up there next Friday. He said, we're going to show them how it's done.
Is that how you said it?
Yeah. Cleaned it up a little bit.
Well, when did he start having trouble with the drinking and all the other things?
He had the problem with the drinking when I went with him, but it was not, he never did drink as much as they write about. They're glory seekers.
Yeah.
I played with him pretty good while before I saw him take a drink, but then he'd get drunk for 3 or 4 days, and then he wouldn't do it again for 3 or 4 months.
Periodical alcoholic.
And so I just learned to live with it. I never did like it. He's aggravating. He wasn't violent. He just aggravating.
Tell them this.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm taking
No,
it.
go ahead.
Tell them the story about when you find y'all up back out west.
He stopped. We stopped the car, and he said, "Come here." And I walked out there. And he handed me $20. He said, "I want you to pay the band off and get you a plane home."
With $20.
I said, "You want me to get a one-way or round trip?" He said, "Yeah, the boy gets funny too."
That's not a classic. He told me,
Gave you $20,
he
huh?
told me that years ago, and I never forgot about that.
But working with Hank Williams was quite an experience. It wasn't all as bad as the writers
Yeah, sure.
make it to be.
What an artist he was. In other words.
Yeah, that 6 or 8 months at a time when he wouldn't drink anything was that's when he wrote his songs. That's when that's when he did all of the good things he did was during that time. When he was drunk, he couldn't spell his name. He couldn't write Hank.
Well, they've immortalized him anyway. With all the stories and everything else.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of it's made up. You could tell us, I'm sure. But
And
Well, a lot of things that you read have been sensationalized. There's some truth in it, but they've made it out to be worse than it was, or
Yeah.
better than it was, whatever the case might be. But I was with him till that very last, when they let him go from the Grand Ole Opry for missing a couple of shows. They called him in and said, "This, is a family show. You're gonna have to go somewhere and get your head on straight." Jim Denny told him that, and he said, "Shag, you going back to Alabama with me?" I said, "No."
he called you Shag, that was your nickname? Shag?
Yeah, one day I said, "I got to get a haircut," and he said, "Oh, Shag, you going?" And I said, "No, I ain't going. We're not going back down there." I said, "For me and you, it's here, not there." He said, "Well, I'll be back." And I said, "Well, I'll be here." And he had just brought Ray Price up to Nashville and took him on the road with us, and they wrote some songs together. And he helped him get on Columbia Records and helped him. Well, when Hank left, they took Ray Price and the Drifting Cowboys and booked them in
Right.
shows. So we were at work the
Oh,
day
yeah.
Hank left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I recorded with Ray and Fred
Yeah.
Rose, especially after Hank's death. Fred started having a request for me to play on
Yeah.
a lot of sessions, and I did. It was a monetary pleasure to
Yeah.
play, but it's and I had a good 4 years with Ray Price, and some of his very biggest early hits. "I'll Release Me" and "I'll Be There," and "Don't Let the Stars Get in Your Eyes."
Yeah.
Moon Mulligan, wasn't it Moon Mulligan that first recorded that? Moon Mulligan?
Recorded.
Don't let the stars get in your
No,
eyes.
it was
No,
Slim Willie.
Yeah,
Over
Slim
there in
Willie.
Abilene, remember?
That's right.
We're on the
Slim,
hayride
yeah.
then.
Moon
right.
had
Oh, lots of them. Lonesome
Yeah,
Hearted
yeah.
Blues. Start with Lonesome Hearted Blues. Sail My Ship Along.
that's one.
Yeah.
And a bunch of other that big hits.
Yeah, Moon was fishing. He'd go in the bayou and fish for 2 or 3 weeks at a time, and they couldn't find him. And he had a song in the charts, and they found him and said, "Moon, I hate to tell you, but your song is #1, and we've been looking for you to tell you about it." And he said, "Well, I'll just have to up and not speak to anybody for a week."
He was a character. What a piano player.
Yeah, he was, wasn't he?
But you know, he's telling us all these stories, and he's got a book out that reveals a lot of those stories. Your book.
What's the name of your book, Don?
Setting the woods on fire.
Oh,
That's
God.
exactly what it's all
It's
about.
about it's an account of my life as it relates to Hank Williams and Jimmy C. Newman and you know, my life in relation with all of the people that I've met and been
Yeah.
It's
associated
an
with.
interesting book. One of these type books you can't put down once it's
It's I tell them in the front of the book, it's hard for me to tell the story of my life without telling a part of the story of somebody else's life
sure.
too. It's not meant to be arrogant or anything like that.
associated with so many other people, sure.
But it's been a good life. I would do it. I played with all the Williamses. It wasn't particular. Hank.
Yeah.
I never played with Hank
Hank
the
Jr.
third, but I played with Hank Jr. for 6 years. Played with Jet Williams for 15 years.
Yeah.
I enjoyed Jet, I think, more than any of the rest of them. I'd get to play them Hank songs every night. I love
Yeah.
to play them songs.
Yeah, sure.
I was just gonna ask you, who, and all the people and everything else that you worked with and everything else, what gave you your most thrills?
Ernest Tubb was the nicest guy that I ever worked for. But I enjoyed a lot of the people. I enjoyed working with Pearl and Husky. It's a little weird at times.
That's
And
right.
I was going to tell you about Jet Williams. I would get to play those Hank songs every day,
Yeah.
every night. And I'd kick them songs off and she'd sing them, and I'd play in the middle and she'd say, "I love you." And I said, "Hank, they're both secrets. Neither one ever told me that."
Well, you would have expected that from them anyway.
But it was quite an experience to work with Hank and do the things that I've done and go to the places that I've been and
Now, I always thought you'd played on Jimmy Davis's Supper Time.
I did.
I thought I knew that style still back then,
Yeah.
you know, when it was such a hit. I said, that's got to be done now, and it was.
Jimmy came in to record another thing. I was out of town, and Owen said, "Well, we got it set to record Wednesday night or whatever." He said, "You get all the musicians?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "You get Don Helms?" He said, "No, he's out of town." He said, "We'll cut when he gets back."
What a compliment! What a compliment! Wow.
Wasn't that nice?
Well, he knew you from back in those
Yeah.
days. You know,
But
back in the Shreveport days.
We recorded with a lot of people back then.
Oh,
Wanda
wow.
Jackson and Brenda Lee.
Yeah.
And I recorded Brenda Lee's very first record.
That was it.
Jambalaya.
That was
Yeah, I've been all
Jambalaya, first
good.
hit.
And Perlin, I recorded with Perlin, and gosh, there's quite a list of them. I can't remember all.
That's history right there.
Yeah,
Yeah, and this was all before the pedal steel came in.
A
Yeah.
lot of it was right at after the World War II, with the steel guitar really come into their own during that
Mhm.
period of time. But when the rock and roll
well, yeah.
came along, the music style changed a lot, and they started using the vocal groups and the
Yeah.
Jordanaires and Anita Kerr singers, and they put me and Tommy Jackson out to pasture.
Mm-hmm. I remember.
But I was playing a lot with that A-team.
Yeah.
Harold Bradley, Grady
Mhm.
Martin, Buddy Harmon, Floyd Kramer, and me and Tommy. But that group made a lot of records.
A lot of hits.
But I played on the Bobby Helms
Fraulein.
and one of the most notable songs that I played on. The little black-headed gal came around in the studio and said, "Y'all gonna record with me and we're gonna get a hit." And it was Patsy Cline. And we did Walking After Midnight, and we did, that's one of the most familiar, I guess, intros that I ever did on rock. I hear it just about every day after 50
Oh, I do too.
56 years.
They're still playing Patsy and Hank Williams,
Yeah.
and they're still selling a lot of records.
I can go into any Cracker Barrel and I can hear myself play before I get seated.
Yeah, before you get seated.
Either with Ernest Tubb or Patsy or.
Hank.
But you know, that's very pleasing. When you get 80 years old, you look back on that and said, "Well, that wasn't too bad."
That's right.
It's been a great ride, hasn't it?
Yeah, it is. I would do it all again.
Oh,
And
Would you change anything?
I wouldn't change a thing. If I had my life a little, I still got the same wife I met and married in my hometown. She's out here with me today, and she'll be with me tomorrow.
Miss Hazel.
Miss Hazel. We both come from the same town, went all the way through school together in the same class.
Did she always encourage you to play?
She didn't even notice me back then in school. I was just another guy in the 3rd and 4th grade.
Oh, well, I'm not talking about
I'm
then.
still married.
Oh, you know, since we're married. Oh, yeah. She encourages me. She stood by me.
You know, you were married before you came to Nashville.
Oh, yeah. I was
Did she
married.
encourage you to move to Nashville?
Yeah, because she remembered that I promised Hank Williams if he ever came up here. I said, "Is that all right?" She said, "Yeah." So when we came here, it was her idea too. And
That's something.
she's been right with me all the way.
Isn't that great?
That's the way Jean was with me. When I asked her to marry me, I said, I'll never let you go hungry. I said, you'll always have a roof over your head and something to eat. I said, even if I have to get a job, day job working, you know. She said, well, if you're not playing, you won't be happy. And if you're not happy, I won't be happy living with you.
That's exactly.
And I know
Smart.
that, till this day, I know that there was time, she wouldn't say it, but I know there's been times she thought in her mind, I wish she'd get a job. But she would
hadn't have said that.
yeah,
She
but
said
she
that.
never said it.
When I
But we
married
always
her,
pull through somehow.
She
You
had
know.
never gotten a doll in her life. She'd never had a doll. I said, gosh, I'll get you a doll. And every year at Christmas time, I get her a doll. I don't care what.
But
She's
Got a house full of
she's got
dolls,
a
doesn't
house.
she?
She's already given my granddaughter a batch of them.
Jimmy C., how did you get, I've never heard how you got in this business.
It all goes back to a 1940 Ford convertible.
44 convertible?
Yeah.
A
yeah.
Ford or a Chevy?
A Ford.
Ford,
A Ford. 1940 Ford convertible. I
Oh,
should
1940
say.
Ford.
Yeah, not 44, 44.
Okay.
Remember, they were popular, the 44s.
Yeah.
Maybe y'all can't remember about that far, but I do. But anyhow, this guy came back from the service. He was a Cajun, but I idolized Bob Wells. I mean, he'd sing, well, I'm not going to get into how he'd sing Cotton Eye Joe, but because like myself, you could get papers on him, you know. He was full of bleed. So Cajun. So he came back from the service and formed a band. He had had a band before he went to the service. His name was Chuck Geary down in Louisiana. Mamou, it was his hometown, Big Mamou. And 10 miles from Eunice, where you go every year, twice a year sometimes. But anyhow, they needed a band. It needed some musicians, and I lucked out on a friend of mine that was that got the job, and so this friend got me the job too. But
As a singer
I
or a
always
musician?
wondered, was a strummer and a
Brother player?
play flat chords and sing. But I wondered if I got the job because he had a little 1936 Ford with a rumble seat, so there was no bandwagon, and I had a two-seated little, it was a coupe 40 convertible. But you see, when you put the top down, you got two seats and a lot of room, and we could put the drums in it if you put the top down. So like that, you could get to the job, put the top up, rain or shine, no bass fiddle. But we'd get to the job with, and I always wondered if I got that job first because I could carry. I never was too sure about
If they
that.
had a bass fiddle, you'd have never made it.
Never made it with no room. Plus the fact that if there had been somebody else with a big two-seater car, but still, no, they couldn't. No one. I lucked out on having a convertible because the only way we could unload and unload was put the top down. So anyhow, I became the vocalist there with him in 1946, and.
If it was a rainy day, you were in trouble.
Oh yeah, well, we'd hurry up and put the top down back up, you know. That's how you did that. We managed.
That worked out.
Sometime after those nightclubs in Louisiana in 1946, rain or shine, we didn't know the difference too much because it was that kind of weather in those days, or the climate was like that for us. You guys worked clubs, you know what I mean. And then we didn't have to have a blackjack like you were talking about earlier.
You had a wire fence in front of it.
You had a chicken wire in front of the stand.
I got where I could unscrew one of them legs on a guitar pretty quick.
Yeah, I wasn't heard about that steel player. So anyhow, I got the job with the guy until about around 46, till about around 1950. We had tremendous success with a record called Big Texas.
Well, where did you find that, and how did you get it, and how did you record it?
Well, what happened is we went to Houston, Texas, and drove over there, and on the way back, we recorded it under another name, and the same guy that had Harry Schultz on that, I forgot the name of the label, that we recorded for, and that wasn't released. So on the way back, we got caught in Lake Charles running a one-way street. We were, it wasn't like the cops stopped him and he didn't ask him, didn't you see the arrows back there? And he didn't say, I didn't see the Indians even. It wasn't one of those deals. He said, didn't you see that there was an arrow? Didn't you see you on a one-way street? He said, no, sir, Mr. Cop. He said, I didn't know. But he said, if you'll let me, where are you from? He said, I'm from Mama. He said, go ahead. So Mama was not a big town, and he could understand that a lot of us didn't speak that language that they did in Lake Charles as they did in, you follow me?
Yeah.
I hope so. If
They're still that way then.
You know, because you go down there. So anyhow, he gave me the job, and we started playing Rougeau's Beer Garden in Eunice, where you go once a year. And then we graduated to the Chicken Shack. It was a more commercial, you know, it was a more classy place. So we played there. And we played clubs all over South Louisiana. But we did get that big hit called Gonna Take South, Big Texas. And it turned out to be the jambalaya with the first cousin Melody, or maybe half brother Melody to jambalaya. I think Jambalaya and Hank and Moon sort of collaborated on that.
They did?
They did?
Yeah.
You will verify that. Well, we had a hit with that song, Gonna Take South, Big Texas. And then my boss quit the band. He pulled a creep. We used to talk about musicians that we'd hire and said, so-and-so, that's a good picker, you know, he really is. What happened to him? Said he pulled a creep, meaning he left the band.
Well, that's how I got changed tape.
Oh, you better get a long tape.